Happy spring, everybody, and welcome to Getting Funded Part 2, Funding Research, the path to finding your best funding partners. And when we say finding funding partners, of course, we're talking about finding more funds. Next slide, please. Okay. Before we start, as we always do, we want to make sure that you change your Zoom name to your first and last name and your organization name. An example is Shy Alderman Occur. And the way you do this is that you hover over your video, you click the three dots in the upper right corner, you click rename and change your full name and organization. Thank you. As you can see, you're going to have at your disposal a recording of this workshop, and the presentation slides we mailed out to all the attendees. This is going to be a particularly important one to go back and revisit, because you're going to be learning some skills here that you definitely are going to need for your future research. It's not intuitive, and so that's why we're just really grateful to have this training, and we have an expert who's going to be training you. And so the other thing is that if you did not pre-register for this event and are just showing up with us today, we're so happy that you are here. But we really want to make sure that we get your contact information so that we can keep you apprised at everything that's going on. Because in this series, you're going to be learning a lot about how to elevate your profile as a nonprofit organization, your impact as faiths and nonprofits, and to move it to the next level. So please make sure that we have your information. Next. So just to let you know who we all are, David Franklin is the Executive Director of Occur. I gave you a little bit of David's background in our last session, and David will be conducting one of our trainings. We're very excited about that, and we really want to encourage all of you to participate in that. It is going to be amazing. And so once again, please join me in welcoming our brand new Executive Director, Dr. David Franklin. And of course, I'm Carmen Bogan, the lead consultant for Faiths. My sister, Michelle Miles Chambers, who is director and a co-founder of Faiths as well. Saran Stokes, who is program assistant for Faiths. Shy Alderman, operations manager for Occur, and Simone Stokes, administrative assistant for Occur. And this is a partial team. There are other people who work with us on a regular basis, but this is the core dream team. So here we are, and we welcome you. Next one. I am so excited to have a dear, dear friend to present today. She's like my little sister. I can call her my mini-me because she and I have so much in common. It is just incredible. And since I'm the older of the two, she has to be the mini-me one. But Michelle is an amazing woman. All of the components are there. Her spiritual, her mental, everything. She is there. She's a whole package. So I want to tell you just a little bit about her, and it's just my honor to introduce you to our speaker, Michelle Edmond. Michelle's the founder and CEO of the Jamco Foundation. And I'm going to have to read this because it is so rich and so meaty, but I want you to know a little bit about Michelle. She's the CEO and founder of Jamco Foundation. It was founded in December of 2019. She wrote the nonprofit's mission statement to express her heart for serving the community. The mission statement reads as follows: helping to eradicate poverty of mind, body, and spirit. JAMCO Foundation works with local mission-driven agencies, including the Nehemiah Project, the San Francisco Project, in offering capacity building in the area of business planning, grant research, strategic development, etc. JAMCO and the Anchor program relaunched a Black-led merchant marine training program operating in the Lightship Relief in Jack London Square. You know where that is. Training is offered there for free, and they've raised a lot of funds this year. So Michelle knows of what she speaks. They partnered with West Oakland Job Resource Center in Oakland from 2020 to 2023, talking to people weekly about free employment services, job training in the construction arena and logistics trades available through the West Oakland Job Resource Center. So as you can see, the work that her organization is doing really does reflect their mission and Michelle's heart. She has been the executive director of SAVE, Soldiers Against Violence Everywhere, the center in Oakland, the executive director of Sinclair Miller Medical Association. If you don't know about Sinclair Miller, it's really a crucial organization for our community. It's an organization of African-American physicians, and they have awarded over $1 million in scholarships to Black medical and nursing students. She's been in corporate America for 25 years, and this is one thing that she and I definitely have in common, because she has the corporate know-how, the corporate perspective, but she also has a heart and a perspective for nonprofit organizations. And that can only help to elevate what we do as nonprofits and faith-based organizations. And so it's just my honor and privilege to introduce you to our speaker for the day, Michelle Edmond.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm super excited to do this training and a little bit nervous. So if you need me to slow down, remind me to do so. I'm like hyped. I'm super excited for this. So I know we've had a lot of rain and we've had a lot of wind, and there has been a lot going on in our world. So we're just going to shake all that off. We're going to shake that off, and we're going to dive into this subject of doing some research on grants. So if you give me a moment, I am going to move into an initial pretest. But before I do so, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak to you. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. As Carmen said, I have my own small nonprofit, and I have worked with a number of local small nonprofits. So I understand the challenge of resources and the challenge of raising dollars, the challenge of not enough hands on deck, or too many hands, but they're not doing what you need them to do. I get that. This is an opportunity that I'll present to you to talk about fundraising and to be forward thinking about what your organization needs. So thank you to Occur for allowing me to speak. Thank you to Carmen and Dr. Franklin and Sandra and Shai and Ms. Michelle at the San Francisco Foundation for giving me an opportunity to come here and share this information. It says I still can't share, Ms. It says so if I give me the share opportunity, I will pull up. Let me try it one more time. It says I cannot share while other participants are sharing. So anyway.
I wish you, it's not letting me unshare. 1 second.
Technology is wonderful until it does not participate with the program. So, well, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to start with a short pretest. That's what's going to be coming up next, is a short pretest, just to test a little bit of knowledge to level set for what your knowledge and understanding is about grants and about fundraising, and a little bit about what you've done and what you're seeking to do in your nonprofit, or in your work or in your ministry, just to give us a little bit of idea. And then there'll be a test at the end. We'll do a post test to see if doing the training has moved the needle. So we appreciate your participation for a couple of reasons. It helps us pinpoint our training better. It helps us to be more specific in what we deliver to you, because this really is your training. It really is your opportunity to gain information. And if we don't know what you need, then we're not meeting that need. We're not adequately meeting that need if we don't know. So
I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't know why it's not letting me unshare. I've done this a million times.
well, let's see. Is it possible we could launch the test?
Yeah.
Michelle, you should send your slides to Shai until we figure out the technical difficulty, then she can move them.
I'm going to launch the test and I can figure it out. Here we go.
All right.
Go and see that test.
I do. I see the test. Okay, 2023.
We see it.
Pre-test.
We see it, Michelle.
See it. We see it. Okay. So I'll just read through it briefly. One, you need to identify potential funders before you conduct your research. True or false? All grants are awarded based on the greatest need. True or false? And there are very few funders who will support faith-based organizations. True or false?
Give everyone a few minutes to fill that out.
And then there are more questions below that. So on the right, there is a scroll bar, and make sure you scroll down because there are 10 questions. And you don't want to miss them. So, and then it gives you a little counter in the lower left corner that lets you see your progress. So you'll know when you get to the end and you can submit your test. I'm answering the questions too.
Well, that's cheating. You know the answer.
Yeah, but under pressure. Okay, and the share screen is working now. Let me. Okay. All right, so let's get that going. Present.
It looks like we have about 30 of the 46 people here have answered the pretest. If anyone hasn't gotten a chance to do it, go ahead. We'll probably wrap up in, do you want to give it another minute or?
Yes, let's give it another minute because it really is important that if you haven't answered yet, it helps us to hone in. It helps also Michelle to kind of hone in a little bit more. So if you have an answer, please do if you can. I realize that some people are dialing in because they don't have full technology today. But if you can, please do. Thank you. Okay.
Another minute and then wrap up.
Yes.
All right. And then again, please make sure you scroll down and answer all 10 questions. If I could sing, I would do the little the little Jeopardy song. But my children tell me I can't sing. I've asked them for singing lessons, make the experience more pleasant for everyone in the household, but they have refused.
That's okay. The Lord loves you anyway.
Quick question, will we be able to show the results or are we saving those?
Yeah, if once I end the poll, I believe it'll show all the results.
Okay.
Yeah. Those of you who have coffee and tea, please enjoy your coffee, your tea, your water. If you have notes like Miss Bogan does, make sure that you have pen and paper. I will be supplying information afterwards, so don't feel like you got to make yourself crazy writing everything down if I forget to say that during the presentation. But I know there are people who, like me, who write stuff down anyway. I need notes for it to stick in my head, right? So some people are note people. I got a whole bunch of pens.
I'm ambidextrous. I can write notes with both hands at the same time.
I'm not that talented. I'm
Neither am
not that
I.
talented. I'm not that talented. My gifts are very humble.
Okay.
All right. Maybe we can close the quiz.
Sure. Okay, sharing the results. You able to see them?
I do see them. Let me scroll up. Thank you very much. So you need to identify potential funders before you conduct your research. That was a pretty close one, 45% true, 55% false. All grants, and I think everyone is seeing this, right? All grants are
Yes.
awarded based on the greatest need, 74% false. There are very few funders who will support faith-based organizations, 84% false. It is important to know what populations the funder wants to support, 97% true. Funders may fund more than once, 100% true. I like that. Online research will help you identify both foundation and corporate funders, 100% true. And most funders only fund at certain times of the year, 89% true. You won't get funding if you're a new organization, that is 92% false. And you always have to be invited before submitting a proposal. 95% said false. And you should prepare a master proposal as a reference for your information, 97% true. So if I understand correctly, we will do the same test afterwards. Is that correct?
At the end, and we're going to see if the needle moves at all.
So
But
I'm not going to tell you the answers.
no.
I'm not, but I am going to get started. So thank you everyone for participating in the pre-test. I'm sharing my slides, so you should see the first slide, finding your best funding partner. So I'm Michelle Edmond. Carmen did such a fabulous job interviewing me, and she was so gracious and kind. I am the executive director and founder of Jameco Foundation, and I'm going to share with you just some information I have learned and honed over my years of working in the nonprofit arena, and talk to you a little bit about how the landscape looks today and how it's been changing. My agenda for the day is a brief introduction, some grant research history, particularly to ground us, because many of us have some experience with grant research pre-COVID, and the grant landscape has changed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, so you can ground yourself in what you know and what is. We're going to get started on first steps and next steps. Now, for getting started, for wherever you are on the grant research continuum, wherever you are, there will be some first steps and some next steps for you. So regardless of your experience, you will walk away today with some concrete next steps, something that you need to do or improve or to hone, or something you're going to be practicing. So we'll review those at the end. This will be a live demonstration. I will actually do some information up front, and then I will move into a live demonstration. So I ask for grace with that. The technology is working with us. And it's going to work. It's going to work well. I want to clarify, as I do the live demo, I want you to understand how to walk through the foundation directory online, what to be thinking about. I will also share resources afterwards through Occur. I will share resources I've created that are just a little simplified and give you some step-by-step instructions. So if you're a note person, great, but don't have to make yourself crazy. I have distilled it all down into some resource sheets to make the process simple, so that when you're not on the recording, you have something next to you that you can walk through step by step. And then we'll wrap up and talk about what big ideas did we take away? What did we learn? What are those first steps and those next steps? We'll review those. and follow up with a post-test. Next. So this is a screenshot of Carmen Bogan from last month's proposal presentation. And I just wanted to review that because Carmen did such an excellent job talking about the master proposal as step one, developing and documenting the strategy, your program, your evaluation for sustained impact. This is step two. This is researching funders that match your program, mission, and vision. This is the magic dating section. And then to refresh, once you attended step one, if you did not, this video is posted on the Occur website. This video is available for you. So if you missed it, if you didn't complete it, please go back and review that. As an executive director, I have always been grateful to Occur for posting the information so faithfully. And thank you, Shai, for your work in that, in your season with Occur, because it has allowed me to go back and review some really valuable information. You always pick up something if you listen to a video a second time. So please go back and do that. And then step three will be how you put it all together, right? That's the next step. You document, you develop and document, you create the information for your organization. Then you research funders that are matched, and then you start to write your proposal following the guidelines of those funders. And then you submit according to the instructions. Just to clarify on behalf of funders everywhere, and we will go through this in the training, please, please, please follow their directions, follow their guidelines. It's like listening to somebody. They tell you, as the old folks used to say, when somebody tells you about themselves, believe them. So when a foundation tells you what they want, believe them. When they tell you what their guidelines are, please believe them and respect that and submit your proposal according to their instructions. So this is step two. All right, let's see. All right, so question. This is a question, not really a quiz question, but a question. What does it take to raise money year in and year out? And I'm doing this as a rhetorical question because we have all of these things that swirl around in our minds, right? Is it the proposal? Is it, they're talking about volunteers, my partners? Am I doing a master document? Is it doing with my board? Is it goals, outcomes, strategy, mission, vision? What does it take to raise money year in and year out? And how do I prioritize my thinking around raising money? So kind of be thinking about that. What does it take? And the truth is, and I did some research, in her presentation, Carmen talked about Kim Klein, who's a master strategist for fundraising. And these points really come from her documentation. It's how lucid and clear is your vision? How clearly can you express what you think needs to be done so someone understands it? How well can you find people who share your vision, who believe what you believe? And all of that is going to feed into what's in this circle, right? Clearly understanding your vision and clearly being able to express it. For me, it has taken multiple iterations to clearly communicate what JAMCO Foundation is doing in the area of capacity building. This training is part of that mission, right? We want to train the trainers. I want to see our community have organizations who are local, who are committed, who are doing the work. But for you to be successful, you need to raise the money to support the organization. And you need to have an organization that's strong enough to survive the winds and the change of the nonprofit in the local community and even the economics of the land. So you need to be strong so that you can support our community, so our community can be strong. And that is where my passion meets the road of bringing my expertise to support people where they are today. And one note on how clearly you can express what needs to be done. My mother, bless her heart, is a very young, super active, community-oriented 80-year-old. But I have to clearly express to her what JAMCO Foundation is doing and why we're doing what we're doing. Not that she doesn't understand community work, she does. Her position is, Well, I don't understand why you're not a Wells Fargo assistant vice president anymore. I don't get that. I don't get why you're not in an office and why you're not in corporate America. So I need to clearly express to her the work that I'm doing so she understands it and it makes sense. And that's the same thing I need to do with any funder or foundation or granting organization. So if your mama can understand it, then others will understand it.
Excuse me, Michelle.
Yes.
Max Taylor just asked if any people shared your vision, and said that probably, but some visions have more support than others, correct?
Correct. Some visions, that's Matt, that was Max?
Max Taylor, yeah.
Max Taylor. So Max, if you want to ask your question out loud, or was it maybe just a comment, you can unmute yourself. Max?
Yeah,
So,
I'm here. Just taking a second. And I'm happy to hold questions until, if there's a question period. That's first
go
off.
for it. No, go for it, Max, please.
Yeah, just one note, as I know I've been struggling with, and it's a bit of both, is I find sometimes there's my own skill gap, right? I'm not doing enough expressing a vision, etc. And sometimes there's just, well, there are 20 programs that would support A if I expressed it well, and there's only 2 programs that are going to support B, and I'm B sometimes, and that that's part of the discussion too, right? Is
Right.
what happens if there just isn't anyone out there supporting you as a question. It's not going to be black and white, right? But just as a context for this too, that's something I'm interested in.
Okay, thank you. That's really good. Thank you, Max, for sharing that. That's correct. And as we look at the research tool, we'll talk about having a wide lens and having a narrow lens. So one thing, having a narrow lens is every possible way you could describe your program. Having a wide lens might be, and I'm not sure what your work is, but might be looking at your audience, because there may be a lot of people. Let's say you support a transition age youth, you're coming out of foster care. There may be a lot of people who support transition age youth. So, but if you support transition age youth and teaching them to cook, and specifically teaching them to cook Jamaican food, and specifically teaching them how to run a restaurant, that would be a very narrow view. So you might have to broaden your window. That the other thing is to talk to organizations that that do something similar, and even just to sneak in and look at their website and see how they describe the work that they do, if you identify with that work. And sometimes that will give you some hints into how to describe your own work. It's kind of like looking at someone else's resume, looking at a colleague's resume to say, how do you describe the work that we do? I'm trying to update my resume. How do you describe the work that you do? I'm trying to update how I describe my community work. That'd be a comment on that. So which falls in do your homework. And doing your homework is a lot of that. It's not just finding grant makers and figuring out the timing and the application, but doing your homework also means how do others describe similar work? And if I can borrow from that, it may help me speak the language. If I speak your language, then we understand each other. If I learn to speak in the language of foundations and other nonprofits that have been successful in this arena, then I may be able to communicate that a little bit better. Does that make sense? Next. Shai is nodding. I'm gonna say that makes sense. Next slide. All right, so introduction, the grant research landscape has changed. It used to be kind of over here. This was my attempt to say it was a little more equitable and a little more generous to small nonprofits. And it has become a profit center. So it has become a profit center that, going back, it has become a profit center. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So back in the day, let's go way back in the day, Herman and I were reminiscing about this. I used to travel to the Foundation Center Library on Sutter Street in San Francisco. It was free. I had my backpack on. I think when I first started traveling there was probably in 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. And they had terminals set up, and you could come in and you could research the foundation directory on their terminals. And then they eventually got to where you could bring your own laptop. And as long as you were sitting in their library connected to their network, you could access the information, and it was free. They had a nice bathroom down the hall. It was clean. There was a librarian there. It was quiet. And the librarian was there to assist you. And they had a library of materials on nonprofits, on grant writing, on fundraising, on starting a nonprofit, on becoming a nonprofit. So that was one option that was free. And the other is the local public library. I used to, the Oakland Main Library had a single computer terminal, just one terminal in the research area, which is massive. There's a massive room at the main, and they had this one terminal kind of in the middle of the room that you could sit in and do your research. So, and that's how you could get access to the foundation directory online. Carmen was talking about Preservation Park and either busing people into San Francisco to the Foundation Center Library, I think she was describing, or taking them to Preservation Park where they could have that experience. So that was back in the day. I've taken board members to the Foundation Center Library to research information, but it changed. It changed, and today, and it changed right, I think, as we were going into COVID. Or just before that. So candid.org is now the corporation that is over the Foundation Directory Online, which we'll sometimes call the FDO. That's just the initials, and GuideStar, which I will talk about. So they have kind of funneled all that information into a profit center where they charge for the resource. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like. And some of this is self-serving, because then you'll appreciate what I'm sharing today. So candid.org, Foundation Directory Online, what is it? The Foundation Directory Online has been around for years. It used to be books. It is now an online database and has been for a number of years. They have grant maker profiles, more than 250,000 grant maker profiles. They have 2.3 million plus nonprofit profiles. So they have information about nonprofits that receive grants. They have key leader information. Key leaders, not all foundations, but most of them list some staff, some contact information. That's really important for how to reach out and to make connection and build relationship and understand if they're going to be a match. They have searchable 990s and 990 PFs. If you're a 501c3, you file a 990. If you're a private foundation, you file a PF. I don't know if that P is private or public, but if you're a foundation, you file a 990 PF. And because you are a not-for-profit entity and you are a public entity, that information is available to the public. So just as a little tip, when you file your 990s and you're describing your programs for the year and the work that you did and the money you receive for it, think of those descriptions as being open to the public. Think of those descriptions as a little bit of a marketing tool, because if someone is searching your 990s, they're going to read that to learn about your organization. And they have millions of grants. They have maps and charts, and they also have information about federal grants. But here's the kicker. It's $3,000 for 2 years. So it's rather expensive. They have payment plans. You can pay $1,600 a year, or you can pay $220 a month, which is flexible. But at those rates, you get the full directory. At about half that rate you get, or a little less than that rate, you can get, I think it's a fourth of the directory. It's called the Essential, and it has a fraction of the information. So it's a powerful tool. A lot of information for you, but they have made it so that if you want to sit at your desk and do this work, or you want to bring this information into your nonprofit, that's the cost, which has made it prohibitive and difficult for smaller cash-strapped nonprofits or startup nonprofits to have this information in-house. But I am going to show you how to get it for free. I just like this free. So we're going to talk about how to get it for free. That is what we are here to do today, how to get all of this for free. But before we do, One more thing, and I would be remiss if I did not bring this up. I think I would be remiss if I didn't share this. So remember I said candid.org has the foundation directory online, and they have GuideStar. And GuideStar, this is their own description, is a free online profile for IRS recognized tax-exempt organizations and faith-based nonprofits. And they say it increases your visibility, which I believe it does. What you're seeing below is my nonprofit. That is my actual GuideStar initial screen that comes up. And I wanted to show you for a couple of reasons. One, I have received what's called the gold transparency seal for 2023. You see it has my EIN number here. It lists my mission. It lists my website, jamecofoundation.org, and there's a donation button, which at some level of transparency, they allow you to add. This resource has, or this GuideStar, because it's under Candid, has become a resource that many funders, both foundations, corporate, private foundations, family foundations, and other entities that make gifts to nonprofits utilize to verify who you are and what you do. And it has become an independent source of verification, as well as for individuals. If they hear about your nonprofit and they're familiar with GuideStar, they can go and do a free search, look up your nonprofit, donate on the spot, or at least learn how you describe your programs, who your board members are. And the reason I want to bring it up is it's free for you. This is one of your first next steps. If you have not gone to guidestar.org to claim your profile for your nonprofit, that's important that you do that. It's a free listing for you. You never know where that's going to take you. And it's a level of professionalism for your nonprofit that's easy to attain. It's easy to attain. So I wanted to, and you attain it by going to guidestar.org and getting started and claiming your profile. One more thing on this, and then we'll move on to the training. So each year, Candid has developed these transparency seals: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And you need to renew this information each year. And it's based on how much information you've shared about your nonprofit. I have some best practices that are from Candid, but one of them is seals have to be earned in order. So you start at one level. It just depends on how much you share about your board. I think to get to the gold seal, I had to share my board information, the racial makeup of my board, programmatic information. I have not yet met platinum, which is strategic goals and objectives, publishing them. But don't be overwhelmed by it. Year one, I think in 2021, I did bronze. I just did the basic. I got as much information up there. We were very new. We were still developing. We were working with the one-page business plan and developing our mission and vision, strategy, goals, objectives. So that was, and then the next year, 2022, I made silver. So I got to the next level. And then for 2023, I've earned gold. So each year it comes up, I've looked to see, can I do a little bit more? But take time to sit down, because your profile is there, and what it will say is that it's unclaimed. It'll have some basic information that was pulled off of your taxes, and you really want to be the one that edits that information, that shows that you're being transparent. And the reason I bring it up is because they use that language, transparent, as if you're not doing it, then you're not being transparent, right? So this is a way to this is just a way to legitimize your organization. It's wonderful to share with board members. It's wonderful to share. You can put this on your website. It's great to show people that there is an independent place that they can go and verify who your nonprofit is besides your website and what you do. So that is your first to do. If you have not done that, or if you haven't done it recently, each year you should go into Candid GuideStar. And once you register and get signed up with it, trust me, they'll send you an email to remind you, and you go in and make sure your information is current for the year. And it's an easy get. That's an easy thing to do. It's a little bit of time, but it's an easy thing to do. Okay. So I wanted to ask if there are any questions at this point before I charge on. Shy, are you seeing any questions? I see you looking.
No questions in the chat, but I'm not sure if people have any questions in their head.
If anyone has any questions in their head, they can unmute and ask. All right.
But no hands raised.
Okay, I'm gonna
I
move
don't
on.
have a question, Michelle, but I just wanted to note, I put it in the chat. That Guide Star is definitely something that everyone should be using. All philanthropic organizations use Guide Star as a point of entry and a point of verification for the nonprofit or the fiscal sponsorship that you are under, as well as if there's anything that's happening with the organization, it'll show up on GuideStar, because the IRS also feeds into if you are, if your 501c3 is suspended or anything like that. And so, as Michelle said, transparency is key. So definitely have that transparency with your funder or your potential funders as well. But this is a really great point to start that process, and it's a seamless process once you get it going.
Thank you for that. It is, thank you for validating that. It is seamless. And you'll see, because Candid is over both organizations, when we start to research grants and foundations, you'll see the link that is made. And you'll realize that your name may be, in your organization may be showing up in ways, and you want to make sure that you're communicating who you are. You really want to make sure you're communicating who you are. Not only suspension, but if you're late on your taxes, if your information isn't current, all of that becomes transparent and available to the public. It's also used for things like, I said corporations, like I have a Canva Pro. That's how I did this presentation. I got a Canva Pro account. It took me a year to get a Canva Pro account, although I sent them my 501c3 letter. And I believe it was because they were waiting for this to be updated and I was really new. So keep in mind that when we're getting opportunities for nonprofits and they're offering a free or discounted service, they'll use GuideStar to verify your organization. All right, so I today will be talking about the Foundation Directory Online via the Oakland Public Library. And I specifically, besides the fact that I'm familiar with it, but I specifically choose the Oakland Public Library because it is available to everyone in the state of California. However, if you are already a library card holder for another city, I looked up other places that have the FDO available to them. There's the Berkeley Public Library. I know the San Francisco Public Library has it online, but you need to be a card holder. And if you're not a card holder, you need to go in person to the public library to get a card, as well as some of these other places, San Mateo, the Los Pasillos College Library, a couple of community foundations, and a couple of South Bay and South County libraries. So it is available in other locations, but Oakland is very easy and it can be done without going into the public library. So this is from the Oakland Public Library. I love this baby. I love this baby. This baby got a book. Baby got a book. Baby should have books. But the reason I use this slide, besides the cute baby, is this is the Oakland Public Library's guide to who can get an Oakland Public Library card. And it works so well for us here in the Bay Area, because anyone who lives in the state of California, anyone, you do not need to live in Oakland. You don't need to have a permanent address. You don't need to be a US citizen. You don't need to be a permanent resident. So because they want to make sure everyone has access to the public library. So you just need to be in California. Wherever you be in California, you can get an Oakland Public Library card and you can get it online. And that's why I use the Oakland Public Library as an example, because you don't actually physically have to travel to the library to access the Foundation Directory Online via their resources. And baby is so cute. Cute, cute, cute. All right, so our first step is you will visit the oaklandpubliclibrary.org. That is their website. That's going to be our very first step there. And then next, if you do not have an Oakland Public Library card, and I'm pulling this up because I know there are people who like to see it. I will actually walk through this with you, but I want to make sure that you see the steps and see how simple it is. You're going to go to the website. You're going to get a public library card. You can complete an application online, and the Oakland Public Library will email your card number and the PIN that you chose. And once they send that email to you, and my understanding is that email comes within a day or two, then you can log in to the website and start searching. So once you get that library card and PIN, then you'll be logging into the website. Now, for those of you that like to do screenshots or screen shares, I'm gonna stop for a second. I'm gonna let you snap a picture of this. This information will be sent in the follow-up to the meeting with the recording, but I know there are those who just kind of want it right now. So if you want to do a screen share or a snap, I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to do that. You know, you may run and get a cup of coffee, but 10 seconds for those that want to snap this 1, 2, 3. And then I will actually walk you through how to do that. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. I see Carmen snapping. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we got it.
Excuse me, Michelle, can you also do this through the San Francisco Library? Are there any other libraries that some folks may already have those cards?
You can, and that was the I'll go back a little bit. That was this slide. So these are some of the
I'm
other
sorry.
libraries. That's okay.
That's when I stepped out to find my phone. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. The reason I do Oakland is because if you do not have a San Francisco library card, you need to travel to the library in person to get it. And Oakland allows you to do it all virtually. Now, to get a physical card, and I usually have my physical card, I forgot to pull it up. And, you know, if I pull this up, it's actually like a Safeway gift card. So that's not the same. But, Oakland will give you a virtual number and your PIN, and they'll do it through email. And you can immediately start searching and using their online services. You need to travel to Oakland if you want a physical card, but you don't need the physical card to start searching online. San Francisco also has the foundation directory available online, but if you don't have a card already, you have to go physically to one of their libraries to sign up first. So that's why I like Oakland. Mix it, because that generally works for everyone that's on the call. So I am going to move to a demo. This is a thank you for that, because this is a good time to ask another question. I'm going to stop share for a quick minute so I can do a new share. Okay, all righty. Share screen, boom, boom. Do this as quickly as possible. Do we see the library screen now? Shy is nodding. Thank you, Shy. So I'm going to go back through those first steps just to make sure you're clear. Show you how simple it is. This is live on my computer. This is the Oakland Public Library. Thank you, Lord, that it worked. So the first step, if you do not have a library card, I'm circling over here to the left where it says use your library. I click down on that, and the very first thing says, welcome, get a library card. You don't have a library card, you should get a library card. If you have other library cards, I know people who have a Walnut Creek library card, they have a San Francisco library card, and they have an Oakland Public Library card because the lending catalogs are slightly different. And something might be checked out in Oakland, it might be available in Walnut Creek. So it costs you nothing. Remember, library cards are free. The service is free. So get a library card. That is my vote. So you click on get a library card. I will be applying in English. I click English and give it a second. A very brief application comes up. You give them your contact information. You select your PIN. You pick a branch. Whether or not you ever plan to come in, you tell them what your ID is and your ID number is. You tell them you're not a robot, unless you are, and then you accept the form. And within 1 to 2 business days, you will receive an email with your new library card and the PIN that you chose, and you will use that to log in. So it's very simple, it's very easy, and you can also do it in person. Oh, there's a library card. That is so cute. That is so cute. Carmen, which library is that from? You're on mute.
San Francisco.
Very nice, very nice.
Here's the back.
And that's your barcode. That's your barcode number on the back.
And then there's your physical card.
Mine looks very similar. Mine is a little black girl reading books from the Oakland Public Library. It's my
Yes.
card. Okay, so that's the first step. Once you receive your card, when you go to the homepage of the library or any screen, you'll see this. See in the upper right corner, it says log in. It says My OPL. This is where you log in to your library account. So I'll hit log in and register. Now this, when Carmen showed her library card with the barcode, this is actually the barcode number from the back of my site. And of course my PIN is blocked, but that's my actual library card. So it is already plugged in because I go into the Oakland Public Library site every single week. Okay, so I am logged in. Oops, I logged myself out. Forgive me for that. Nope, I stay logged in. Looks like I stayed logged in. So the sign that I'm logged in is my information is up here. That's me. So take a minute. I'm going to take a minute. We're going to stretch our arms. We're going to wiggle. You're going to shake your shoulders because we're about to get into it. You're going to be paying attention. You're going to want to be alert. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. All right, let's take a minute, settle myself in my seat, get down to business. So this is the homepage of the Oakland Public Library. These are the instructions that were on that screen I gave you. I said, go to the library, click on See and Do, go all the way to the right under Get Support, and it says Foundations and Grants right there. So let's do that again. I'm at the Oakland Public Library main page. I click See and Do, and I go all the way to the right, Foundation and Grant Funding. And you come to this page with all the hands coming together. Let's scroll down. Now I have a couple of things on this page. One, here is where we're going. This is FTO by Candid, the full professional, that $3,000 or every 2 years or $1,600 a year. That's the full site. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit further because I'm not reviewing this, but there are also grants to individuals. That's great for artists, researchers, students. There's some tuition funding sources for school. And there's the California Grants Portal, which are grants offered. Those are state grants, State of California grants offered by departments of state organizations. So I just want you to know that's at the bottom of the screen because the library is a great place for all kinds of information. And remember that the beauty of the library is they have librarians, right? So librarians on the phone, librarians if you go in person, librarians if you send an email, because they themselves are researchers, right? To be a librarian is a really tough degree, and they're researchers. So they want to help you use their tool. They want to help you find information. So if at any point you get lost, call the library and ask for help. That's what they do. So I'm going to click on FTO by Candid and give it a moment. That's it. That's it. It was that simple. We're in Candid. We're in the foundation directory. This is the professional level.
Excuse me, Michelle, this is Carmen. I just wanted to remind everybody that we have just now connected to what it is that you had said we would have to pay a lot of money for to access. It's just keeping that at top of mind because we didn't have to pay anything, but this is the professional level. So this is such an amazing gift.
$1,600 a year.
Yeah, I don't have that. for this.
I'll have that.
So
Have that.
it is, but so
Not to spend on this.
this is really big. And everybody who has a nonprofit who really needs to do the research, faith-based organization, doing activities in the community, you really should be happy about this because this is a gift. Thank you, Dr. Edmond, very much from Jameco Foundation.
Yeah, this is when I found out that you could do this at home, and it was I will say a gift and a blessing of the COVID period. Because before this, you could do this at the library, sitting at the library network. But when they made it available online with your library card, this means you could be sitting at home in the comfy of your house or your office on your time frame, because I know a lot of individuals who work in community work all hours. And now this is available on your schedule, not simply when the library building is open.
And one other thing, Michelle, for the organizations is that because you can do this in any setting, you can bring other people into the room and teach them how to do it.
Yes.
So they can do it for you. You don't have to be the only one. You can use your library card to go in, but you could have other people in that room with you, walk them through it so that they can get their card and go in and do this research for your organization so you can get those proposals out there into the hands of foundations to actually access some money.
This is a great way, just as a few tips, just to tag on to that. This is a great way for that volunteer, that retiree, that board member who has time and has some acumen on the computer. And I'll bring this up as we talk. This is a great way to bring them into the process. And I'll show you ways that you can share the information so that they can be doing some of the research and reporting back to you. Yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, so this is the Foundation Directory Professional. We are in as part of the Oakland Public Library. There's a couple of things as we go through this. We're going to talk about how to search. That's going to be the next. We saw how to access it, right? We know how to access it now. Now we're going to talk about how to search, how to look up funding organizations. And I will say at first, there is no right or wrong way to do this. I will show what I have learned, but I want to encourage you that you can't break it. And there's no wrong way to gain the information as long as you can get the information you need. So give yourself some grace, explore it a little bit. If you get yourself so far down the rabbit hole and you just start over again, just to go back to the beginning and start over again. Very easy to do. And then the other thing I would recommend is pace yourself because it's a lot of data. So when you're doing it, maybe give yourself a window. I'm going to sit down and do this for 30 minutes or an hour, and then I'm going to pull away from it because you'll start to get brain fog because it's just a lot of information to take in. So this is the homepage. Now, there are two different ways to search. One is just type something in and search it. Just type it in and search. And then the other is to use advanced search and filters in detail. So I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to do the just enter and go. And let's see, I gave myself an enter and go example to show you how Marines. And we have the anchor program. So I'm just going to type in Merchant Marine and I'm going to hit search. I'm going to see what comes up. Live demo. Okay, so a couple of things. One, when I typed in Merchant Marine, even though I did not select the advanced search options, it actually created some qualifications for me. It interpreted what I said. It interpreted Merchant Marine as oceans and coastal waters. That makes sense. Marine science. Okay, I'll give you that. Aquatic wildlife protection, probably not exactly. because our program is not, so I might remove that criteria. And then military personnel. Well, military personnel, merchant marines are not military personnel. They're commercial. They work on commercial vessels with container ships, right? So they're not military personnel. So they're civilians on cargo ships. So I'm going to say that doesn't work. I'm going to remove that. I'm just going to click this X and I'm going to say that doesn't work for me. You know, even though I got a good result, I got a list of over 1,800 grant makers, but I don't want them to think the population I'm serving is military personnel. So I'm going to remove that. What I am going to do is when I click in this box, I'm going to get a whole lot of options here. So I'm going to go back and say social and economic status, and I'll go through these a little more detail. I'm going to say this is for economically disadvantaged people. And if I click that down caret, it will say extremely poor, homeless, low income, working poor. And I'm going to leave that in because we've had homeless students and we've had extremely poor students in our program. So I'm going to leave that in. And then I'm going to look at incarcerated people. And I'm going to say ex-offenders because you can be an ex-offender and become a merchant marine. And then I'm gonna say that instead of just any geographic focus, I'm gonna say Bay Area because I know Bay Area is something that they have in their database for geographic focus. And then I'm gonna hit search again. Okay, and this tells me up here what my search criteria is. And as you scroll down, this tells me the grant makers that fit that search criteria. Okay, so that was just an enter and go. The reason I wanted you to walk through the criteria a little bit is when you hit enter and go, how the database interprets the information, that's really important for you because really these terms, community and economic development, ocean and coastal waters, marine science, that is how funders and foundations are describing what I say is a merchant marine training program, right? So I need to know that goes to Max's question. That's actually going to help Max when he sees how the database describes his work. That's going to help him a little bit. And then I hit the search and I get a list of almost 3,000 grant makers, right? 3,000 foundation grant makers to look at. So before I jump into my foundation grant makers, I'm going to show you that one search. Then I'm going to show you a more detailed search. So I'm going to start all over again. Yes, question.
Yeah, Chiquita in the chat just asked if you could recap the steps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my first step, that's good. I could do that again. My first step was to type in merchant marine. And this is what I call enter and go. Just type in something that applies. I have a merchant marine training program. I typed in merchant marines and I hit search and it says finding funders. And then when I looked at what this description up here is, all the criteria it had for merchant marines. And I need to look at that criteria before I jump into the grant makers because maybe it doesn't closely describe my work. And what I did was I removed military personnel and I added Bay Area. So I looked at this criteria and I said, that doesn't quite work. And one way to do it is click on advanced search and make changes. Look at what they've picked. It's very clear. It's bright purple, pinkish purple here, and click on that. And then what I would love to do is clear this out. Oh, I did that for Chiquita. I'm going to clear this out. And we're actually going to walk through my preferred way of searching. But I wanted to show you what happens if you jump in and go. That's fine, not a problem. But if your work is, if you want to be more targeted in your work, and you want to filter in, right? You want to filter in closely what works for you, and you want to filter out those that really do not work for you. I recommend from the homepage using advanced search and filters, and this box will open up. I recommend clicking additional filters and a new box will open up. And so let's walk through these, because this really is kind of like the magic in the mix. He's not right, but this is the magic in the mix. This is the details, but also there is a lot of hints here. If you don't know how to describe your work, there's a lot of hints here that if you just scroll through this, you'll get some ideas for what might line up. And as you become more comfortable and adept at researching, you'll find those matches a little bit better. But we have a subject area, what needs funding, right? And when you click in the box, all of these categories open up, all of these search categories, and they have what are called down carrots. So these down carrots are an opportunity for you to get more information about more detail, right? So I clicked human services. Not it, right? It was closed. I click a down there. Oh, there's lots of options for human services. Ooh, shelter and residential care. Ah, okay. I think I'm going to go. I'm not going to qualify it any further. I'm just going to say that I'm doing shelter and residential care. I'm just doing a sample search. Geographic.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem, please.
Daryl, I'm not sure exactly when this would be helpful, but Daryl McMillan in the chat just asked if you could search faith outreach or faith-based given our audience. Just to throw that out there.
I'll make a note of that. See if we can do that later. All right.
Let's see. Michelle,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment. This is Carmen. One of the things I think would be really important for our participants to make note of is that what you're doing right now is teaching them a new language. It's the foundation language. And it's really important, you know what you call what you do, but it's important for you to know what they call it in their language. And that's what this process is showing us. Here's what I call it. Now let's see what the foundations call it. Because when you see what language they use to describe what you do, you've opened a whole world
Get a
to
match.
getting funding. You've made the connection. You can now talk to them because now you're speaking their language.
Correct. And you can start to use that language in your master proposal. You can start to use that language in an executive summary, because now instead of speaking colloquially or how you would speak to an individual casually, you can speak more formally about it's really the science and the business of the work that you do.
Exactly.
To Daryl's question, yes, there is a section for religion and faith-based. You can click religion generally, but religion and faith-based work is often specific to a faith. So that I'm not going to use that for this example, but I wanted to show that there is a section called religion. And then when you click on that, you get a whole list. And for some religions, like Christianity, for example, you get a detailed list. And then it can go to Protestantism and an even more detailed list. Now, that is important for a couple of reasons. It goes to the question about faith-based work. So there are foundations that support faith-based work generally specific to certain faiths. There's also interfaith, Islam, Judaism, much more detailed options for both of those, right? So you can become very specific if your faith-based work is specific and you want someone who will support that work and not shy away from it, that is available to you. And what I usually find, and you'll see this, is there's some general terms like spirituality. I think I saw interfaith. You could just click all together. You could go back and just click religion. But if you click religion, it's going to include everybody. And that may be too broad for you because it might bring in Hindu when you're looking at Buddhism. It might bring in Catholicism and you're looking at more Protestantism. So looking at the list and going through, and I'll say I nerd out on this stuff. So I will tell you that when I first started searching, I went through every single category. That was my first step, was just go through and say, oh, well, what do they mean by public safety? Well, what do they mean by abuse prevention? Oh, well, a child abuse is in the middle of that. Domestic violence, elder abuse, and sexual abuse. Oh, that's really good to know. I didn't realize that would be under public safety. Oh, okay. So if I do elder abuse prevention, that's a public safety issue. That's abuse prevention specifically of elders. Oh, that's a good way to talk about my work. So I went through all these categories to help understand the language of the foundation. So organization name, you use that if you're looking up a very specific organization. For a general search, I tend to leave that blank. Down here where it says include U.S. federal funders, I'm not covering federal grants today, so I tend to unclick that because I don't want them to come up in my listing. Geographic focus is where will the money be used? That's really important. And I already know that they have a Bay Area section. I know they have a general Bay Area, and so I like to put that in because there are funders who fund specific geographic regions. So you really want them to fund in the Bay Area and in the state of California, if that is where you are located. I generally leave this blank because this is the location of the grant maker or the recipient. And I leave it blank because there are people in California, in Oakland, getting grants from all over the country. So I like to focus on where the work is being done, not so much where I'm located, because you can be doing this work and be headquartered someplace else. And then the other big one to click on, besides subject area, is population served, because it is another one that opens up. And I want to say, since the last time I was doing heavy research in this, they have expanded this. So they're continually getting feedback and growing this area. You have age groups. You can click down and extend. Like I'm looking at age groups, older adults. I'm going to click seniors, right? You have ethnic and racial groups, family relationships, gender and sexual identity, health, social and economic status, religious groups. I skipped that one. Sorry, social and economic status. And each time you see a down caret, bam, there's more information there. So if you get really specific, economically disadvantaged people, or I think if you go down further, that you see what that includes: the working poor, low income, homeless, extremely poor. Okay, I think that works for who I am researching, right?
Michelle, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. We have a question in the chat from Norma Francisco, and they asked.
Hi, Norma.
They asked, is this resource available to for-profit organizations also?
It is. It is. It depends on the work that you're doing, and it depends on the criteria of the nonprofit, right? So most of them are looking at, I would say, nonprofits, 501c3s. But if you're doing community work as a for-profit venture, then you really just have to look at their guidelines to see, do they require? Some will say, absolutely, you're required to be a 501c3 or to be fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. But some are a little more flexible with their support. And I'll give you an example. I hope this is a good example. Okay, so I'll give you an example. We're dealing with stores that are doing local donations, right? You want to go to Walgreens and you have an event and you want them to support your event and you want to give out water to the people. They may not require you to be a 501c3 for that. It's a local community event. It's a local community event, and that may not be a requirement for them to make that donation. You really have to ask the organization or research the organization given the money. Thank you. Good question, Norma.
Thank you.
All right.
Michelle,
So
can we back up for a second?
yes, ma'am.
On the the question about funding for faith-based organizations. I think it's important for folks to understand is that there's a difference between seeking funding for faith-based work and faith-based organizations doing community work, that they just happen to be a faith-based organization
Good point.
and they are doing nonprofit work. Can you talk a little bit about that distinction? Because what happens a lot of times is when faith-based organizations do research, they lead with the fact that they are a faith-based organization, which automatically limits them
Yeah.
to this much.
Yeah.
But if they talk about the fact that they're doing childcare or homelessness or feeding programs, it expands it. They just happen to be a faith-based organization, but the work that they're doing is the same work as any other nonprofit organization. And it's really important in your research to make that distinction.
I like that. And I'll use an example from my past history. So when I was executive director of SAVE, Soldiers Against Violence Everywhere, we launched a community ambassador program working with the homeless in West Oakland, and called it pre-employment training. Really, it was an opportunity to go to those who just continually seem to be left behind, and to walk into the camps and offer them not only services. We did camp cleanups where we would actually get the residents together, but and clean up the camp and provide them a hot meal and gift cards, and had the city clean up the trash. I mean, we'd bag it, tell the city, and they'd come pick it up. SAVE started as a ministry. It started as a ministry, and then as it grew to a 501c3, it still was associated with the ministry. But the work that they were doing did not involve proselytizing. SAVE stands on the corner for murder victims every year throughout the entire city of Oakland. They actually go to the neighborhood where the person was murdered in the community. And then they remember them. And the way we were able to raise money is to always be transparent about the source of your work. The source of the work was our Christian faith, but the work that we were doing did not involve proselytizing. It involved service. And so when you highlight that, you'll find that there are many foundations who would be open to supporting that. When you clarify yourself looking for specific religious monies, sometimes they're looking at that as supporting your proselytizing work, furthering the mission of that faith, right? Versus community work. How that looks as you go through, we got a grant from the city of Oakland, a community development block grant, which is a federal grant that's funded through the city. And when we got to contract time, we had to stipulate as executive director and the board that in our work, we were not proselytizing. We had to stipulate that when someone came to our office to do work, that we were not proselytizing, that we were not obviously or subtly trying to recruit them into our faith. And then once you clarify that, then they can view us as another 501c3. So that's a little bit of a difference. And it's a balance of your transparency that's really important, because that's why you're doing your work. But if the work that you're doing is helping the community, and the real key is, will you help anyone in the community? That might be a real metric. Does anyone who comes to you get help? Do you think does that answer the question, Ms. Carmen? Okay. Great, thank you. And thank you, Shai. Just jumping in with the questions is great, because I know people have them in the moment. I don't want to miss those pieces. So we're still searching. So I have a couple of tips, just a couple of little tips. This is the additional filters. See, I click this additional filters over here. See that? Like a magic trick. Closes. Bam. All right. So this is the additional filters. I do just a couple of things here. This is a great research tool. I don't use it in my search, but the reason I like it is it has another detailed list of the ways that you can be supported. And sometimes we're asking for program dollars, we're asking for general support, or we're asking for specific program support, but there are lots of ways and lots of organizations that offer support. The first one, capacity building and technical assistance, whether that's fiscal sponsorships, mergers, seed money, system and operational improvements. And that's something that would roll off your tongue, but someone's offering funding for that, technical assistance. So this was another one that I just went through on my own, and I clicked every down carrot. Oh, building acquisitions, capital campaigns, because some people don't do capital campaigns. So if your need is more broad, I would not select this because it can narrow it very much. But if you need to acquire land because you want to do a housing project, then and you that's a difficult thing to find. So if your need is very, very specific, go ahead and make that selection. But many funders offer different types of support strategies. So I don't click it, but it's great to help you, again, speak their language, right? That helps me speak their language if I know the types of support they get. And the same with transaction type. That's the type of money given. So the support strategy is the first one. The other one is type of money given. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's cash, there's matching gifts, there's volunteer services, there's in kind, there's foundation administered program awards. There are lots of different ways that organizations give money, and it's really important just to understand them, because you may be looking specifically for cash grants for program work, and you may find that there are other different levels of transactions or monetary support that you had not considered. Okay. All right. And then my last tip, and this will be in the resource, is the years go all the way back to the beginning, all the way back to 2003. And we are going to take this and take it all the way up to, say, 17, 18 even. And when the reason we do that is we will remove a number of foundations who are no longer granting or are in existence. And they have money, but they haven't granted money to anybody in 10, 15 years. So they still exist, but they're not actively submitting and granting funds. And so you want someone who's working more recently. I would take it to just before COVID so that you get the last 5, 6 years or so. That's going to give you a more accurate current picture. All right. So we're looking at Bay Area, shelter and residential care. I think that was my example. Seniors, economically disadvantaged people, which we know includes homeless and low income, and we're going to hit search. And when you hit search, what you'll see initially is your search criteria, and then you will scroll down and you'll see a list of grant makers. They're here. And below that, you'll see a list of grants. Now, remember I told you those seals of transparency would show up when you were searching for grants? This list are organizations that have received grants, and these little seals here, that means they have a silver transparency seal from GuideStar. HomeRise has a platinum transparency seal. Mid-Penn Housing does not have one. So that is where it shows up. It shows up in the grant research. It shows up when grantors are looking at grant makers are looking at grant recipients. So I've got a list here. There are a lot of grants listed on this list. That's okay. I'm going to go back and do that again. Let me do that again because I think I missed a step. All right. We started with the list, right? 751 people on this list. That's way more than you can do in half an hour, because there is a lot of information. I clicked view all, and you need to do that to see more of the list, as well as to print out information or email information. And so I clicked view all. That was the step I didn't cover. And guys, is this okay? Is this working for people? I don't dance or anything, but if this is good information, I'll keep going.
Yes.
All right. Okay, great.
Don't
Thank
stop.
you. Thank you. Thank
It's
you. All
very
right.
good information. It's excellent.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
thank you. All right. So there's a couple things here. This is that list expanded out, right? So it's a whole list here. A couple of things. Click this button. It says exclude grant makers not accepting applications. We want to exclude that. That took my list down to 194. Now, there may be reasons why you want grant makers that are not accepting applications. I don't know what they would be, but you might need it for research. You might need it for research, especially when you get into more sophisticated organizations that don't do granting, but sophisticated mean a little more complex. They only do by invitation, and you need to develop a relationship with them. That may be some of it. Now, there's some tools here. They're so tiny, you almost miss them. And your screen might even be covered by the people videos, but up here in the right corner, see where it says tools? These little tools are really important for taking this search work offline. They are important for helping you share this with somebody else. You can download a PDF. That's the first one. You can download a CSV, that is an Excel spreadsheet. And you can email a PDF of the results. To do this, you need to pick somebody, because they're not going to send you all 194. You can pick up to 10. All right, you can pick up to 10. I have to find a better way to do that. Pick up to 10, but if you select them, like I'm going to select Walter and Elise Haas. I think I said I was going to select the San Francisco Foundation, and I was going to select one other one. I don't see it here. All right, I'll start with those two. Those two are good. I was going to do Lowell Berry, but they may just be further down on the list. They are based out of Walnut Creek or Orinda, Moraga, someplace like that. Someplace on the other side of that tunnel. All right. So I click the San Francisco Foundation, we go all the way back up to the top, and Walter and Elise Haas. And the reason I click them is because I want to download a PDF of these results. Or I might want to email a PDF of these results, say to that volunteer or that board member that I want to say, hey, I think we might be a match for this. Can you research it further for me? And let me show you what one of those PDF looks like. It takes a second. I'm just going to show it to you because it's a live demo. So this is really what you will experience. It'll start preparing the PDF and putting it together.
Excuse me, Michelle, we have a quick question.
Oh, that's perfect
But it
time.
can also wait, but I figured maybe this is a good time.
Ah, that's perfect time.
Angela Hay asked, how do you get invited to apply for grants for funders that are invitation only? Do you write a letter of introduction to market yourself, or go to LinkedIn and find contacts, or turn up at events where you know a funder's board member will be speaking? Any ideas are welcome.
Yes, those are very good ideas, Angela. And I heard your bio when you spoke. You are a brilliant, brilliant lady. I am so impressed to have
I've
you.
done masses of consulting myself, so I admire your presentation. I think it's excellent. And I will say, when I searched that foundation directory in San Mateo Library, and I went for Christians who would fund the elderly, I only found one organization, and we were funded by them already. So it is quite tricky. And in the Bay Area, I was very precise but I was quite surprised how hard it was.
There it was.
Yeah.
You might widen that search a little bit. You might widen that search and find some nuggets that will support you a little bit.
Yeah,
better.
our problem is we do preach sometimes, so that's tricky sometimes.
That can be tricky, and it depends on the program too. So that can be tricky, and sometimes you need to work with, particularly if you have certain faiths that are active. For example, what was the one I applied for? The Episcopalian. I applied for a grant through the Episcopalian Church. I am not Episcopalian. And we were not an Episcopalian organization, but they supported the work we were doing with the homeless.
Yes.
They were willing to support the work we did with the homeless with a small grant. So what I'm showing you here is what you get when you download that information. You actually get the entire grant profile. Now, this is a PDF. So this is a lot of information about the grantor, and I'm going to scroll through it. I'm going to walk through it slowly. I'm going to walk through it live, but this is actually a PDF. And then the next PDF starts, which is the San Francisco Foundation and all of their information. So this is a PDF. I can save this on my computer. I can save this. I've done that before, where you save the PDF and then go back, do the research for what seems like an initial first swipe. Who do I think might, just at first glance, looks like there would be good match for me? And I'll show you how to do that. And then download those PDFs so that the next time I can sit down and then go in more detail for each of those and kind of do it in phases. I have found that to be helpful because at some point you get to be a little data logged. You get to be a little overwhelmed with data. So I want to show you that because that little tool is quite modest. The email is the same thing. I won't do it live, but the email is emailing a PDF of the results you chose. And that's a great way to share that information with somebody. That way, even if they're not sitting with you, you can say, this is the San Francisco Foundation profile. This is all their information. Can you go to their website, which information will be on there? And can you research to see if we're a match and when they're accepting grants that fit our area? And you can share that information with somebody and bring them along on the journey. So when you highlight over a grant, this is back to the main list, it gives you a little bit of a snapshot. Their top subjects that they do work in, the grants awarded, how many recipients. So you know that they're actively working. They have been giving lots of grants in the area of the subjects that they support. I would click here, Walter and Elise Haas, give it a second. Thank you for working. So this is the profile that you saw in the PDF, but this is the live profile. I'm back in the network. One of the reasons I chose the Walter and Elise Haas Fund is because we all know the San Francisco Foundation, but also this is another local Bay Area fund that does a lot of really good work. Their profile is very updated, and it's just, they kind of have all the pieces in place. And if you're not familiar with them, I thought this would be one to share. So this is the name of the fund. This is where they're located. They're in San Francisco. This is their website. If you want to see if anyone is in on LinkedIn, and they have a button there that you can click, and they have their who's who and their contact information. That information also can be found in the menu. And as you scroll down the page, you'll hit each of these. You'll see their grants, their funding interest, who they're about, similar funders, and so on and so forth. So that is how we will walk through. This is a snapshot. This is the first page of any foundation entry, is a snapshot of what the work they do, where the money goes, how big their grants are. For this, it is important to see, am I on this list, right? Like Walter and Elise Haas Fund, religion, I think it's the Jewish Community Center they fund. Community and economic development is our largest area in human resources. You want to see where the money is going, particularly if they're out of state. If they're in New York or the Midwest, but they might fund in California. So where they fund depends on a lot of factors. So you can't always assume, and that's why it was important to put in that you want to do the work in the Bay Area, because they may be located in another part of the country and fund that. And you can get a lot of information here, but I would say at a glance, I just want to know, do they fund where I am? I'm in California. They do fund. And how big their grants are, that's helpful. But, you know, it depends on where you are on the continuum as to what grants you could apply for. But it's good to know that they're funding in the last 5 years. And then there's lots of detail here you can play around with, a little bit ancillary, but good to know. When you scroll down to grants, they'll start to list who they have funded. And they list them by year, and you'll see how much they funded. Again, the transparency seals are popping up here, platinum and bronze. Transparency seals from Canvid. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down. This is their funding interest, and you can see as I go to each section, that part of the menu highlights. This is where you see, am I somewhere on this list? I see human rights, human services, I see low-income people. I see geographic focus is California. So I think that's really good. I want to see what types of support they give, all the different ways. They give seed money, they give money for equipment, they offer general support, they might do professional leadership development. That may not be that every grant is available for all the support strategies, but it does mean somewhere in their program, they offer this kind of support. They support these strategies. So it's kind of like matchmaking, right? How many points do you line up with for them? How many points of connection do you have? And the greater the number of points of connection, that goes back to that, do they want to be, do they want to support my work? Or can we partner in this work together? It's really what you're looking, can we partner in this work together? It's not about money. We never chase money. You're really looking for a relationship.
Michelle,
And
is
that-
it okay time for another chat question?
yeah.
Okay. Max Taylor from Peer Voices Network just asked, it seems like funders only sometimes or rarely talk about competitiveness. Is any of the research able to look at likelihood, aka 10 applicants for every one funded versus 2 applicants for every one funded? And I also have another related question, but I can wait on.
Okay. Okay, no, I'll hold that related question. That's a really good one. I don't know. Let me think about that because I'm not sure. Well, let me answer it this way. When you look at, let me go back up. When you look at the grants that they have done here, you can get a feel for the size of the organizations. You can get a feel for how many organizations they funded, although you may not know how many applied. You can get an idea for how many they funded and at what level each year. So that gives you an indication of their work. You can look at, there are some clues to that. One thing you can do is contact them, and if there's a program officer, or even if there is an email way to communicate with them, and you can ask that question. I've learned that recently as a best practice is you can call and say, I think my work might be a fit for XYZ program. And I'm looking at, so you can ask that question, are we a fit? And then you can ask, how many applications do you expect to receive? Or for this round of funding, on average, how many applications do you think you'll receive and how many are you prepared to fund? And because it depends on the money, they can't exactly answer it always apples to apples because they're like, well, I have $1 million to distribute. And depending on the number of applications that are relevant, we will fund in the 10 to 30,000 range. However many we fund in the 10 to 30,000 range determines how many will receive funding in this fiscal cycle. Okay.
Let me piggyback on Michelle. That was a great answer, Michelle. So I want to say that it's not like science. It's not like mathematics in regards to if you get 50 applications and you're going to fund 25. It really depends on what comes in, how much you have in resources to provide, and then also what is going to be your strategies or your outcomes that you're going to fund in. So you may have a $5 million pool, but you may have 4 strategies within that pool to fund. And it may not be where you're going to distribute all strategies equally, but it may depend on what comes in. The more that a funder knows about your organization, the better off it is. And it's not always about who writes the best proposal. It could be that that particular funder is really looking specifically for BIPOC communities, or they may specifically be looking for low income BIPOC communities that support youth between the ages of 13 and 24. So just really understanding the process and really what the priorities are, I feel like it's really important. And again, whenever you're in a competitive process, there's always a 50-50 chance that your project will get funded and your project will not get funded. What I encourage you to do if your project is not funded is to contact the funder to have a conversation about why the project was not funded, what specifically are they looking for? And the sector is really moving into trust-based philanthropy, which at the FADES program, we've always done trust-based philanthropy. So staff do not make any recommendations on what's funded. All of our recommendations come from community members with the community board. So there are so many different factors, and sometimes it's not about the best written proposal. And then sometimes it is about the best written proposal. But again, the more a funder knows about the work that you're doing in more intimate ways, the better you are to receive the funding, even if you don't have a well-written proposal.
You, Ms. Michelle, because I just lost my train of thought. I was going to add, relationship. What she's talking about is relationship. If you don't get funded, back to Angela's question, if you don't get funded and you go back and ask the question, that can be the beginning of relationship. That can be the beginning of, well, that was or was not a match for us, or we did or did not fund for these reasons. And sometimes it can be we were just overwhelmed. Not that they couldn't process them, but there were just more great proposals than we could fund. So starting that dialogue is really, really important.
Can I just say one thing? That answer came from Michelle Miles Chambers from the San Francisco Foundation, for those of you who didn't recognize her voice.
Authority. She is the authority in the room. Because these are her colleagues in her work. The About section, always check the About section. Sometimes it has nothing more than the mission. Sometimes it has, a little background information. I think that's important. If you want to match with this organization, you might want to understand their history, because they're standing on their history. They're standing on their mission in the work that they do and how it evolves. And part of knowing if you are a good match for them is knowing how they describe themselves and what is important to them. And if they have program areas, and Haas and the San Francisco Foundation are very good at listing out their program areas. And that's really where you get into the nitty gritty to determine if what looks like a match really is a match. But I have one caveat to that. The foundation directory is great. It is wonderful, but you always, always, always need to match it with going to the foundation's website if they have that. So I'm going to clarify that, because it's going to come, it's at the very bottom of the page, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. The foundation directory says, if you think this foundation is and I love this feature, if you think this is a great mix for you, here's 6 others that they have similar patterns of giving. They might be a match for you. It's another way for you to slice through the data to see, if I was a good match for Haas, then I might be a good match for the Roy and Ida Ingo Foundation in Lompoc, or the Archstone Foundation in Long Beach. And then when you're online through the library, you can click this information and it will go to their profile. If you have a PDF, you won't be able to, those links will no longer be available to you, but you can make a note. Next time I'm online, I'm going to check out Archstone, or I'm going to look at them on their website. This, again, we're looking at the profile just to see all the different sections. If they have applications and RFP details, it will be here. Sometimes this is extremely detailed. Sometimes it says go to our website. I always balance this with visiting their website, because sometimes the FDO is more current. A lot of times the website has more up-to-date information, especially for movements and changes and topics that are relevant and historical, right? That are happening right now is the term I want to use. So read this carefully. I have found sometimes there is detail here that's not on the website. Sometimes I've found there's detail on the website that's not here. And so it really is kind of an understanding of the two. This is that research piece. So you don't get left out or caught short. I don't worry so much about the financials or their taxes, but I do like to look at the who's who. And I chose this because they have some in here that have a LinkedIn tab. And if you click their LinkedIn tab, guess what opens up? Their LinkedIn profile opens up. So Elena Chavez Quezada perhaps, Senior Advisor for Social Innovation. So that's wonderful that her link shows up. I'm going to go back to my profile. Or she's a program officer. Stephanie Rapp is a senior program officer. There is a link here for Stephanie. Zach McCrae, that sounds familiar, has a LinkedIn. He's a program officer. Zach is a program officer. Francis is a program director. And so you have, and then you can also see the officers. This is really important. That goes back to Angela's question, I think. It might have been Angela, might have been someone else. This is really important for who do you contact? Who might have the information? This is that staff. Who might I be connected with? If I go to LinkedIn, I might find that I'm connected to Francis, or I might find that I'm 3 degrees of separation, but I know someone who's connected to Francis. I might have a board member that knows Francis and can reach out to Francis. So that's where you become really strategic and detailed about making those relationships. Yes, Carmen.
Yeah, I wanted to say that this LinkedIn component is extremely valuable. Because if you have a board that's connected and they are connected to someone that is on this board, if we were to scroll back, some board members have discretionary funds, which means that you can occasionally bypass some of the normal steps and do some of this relationally as you approach the foundation. So the LinkedIn part, it's big.
It's big. It's really big. And that's
Really
another way
big.
to get board members and volunteers who are connected. That's one way to bring them into the fundraising process is relationship. If they can help make a connection, someone says, oh, well, that Wells Fargo, my sister works for my brother-in-law works for Wells Fargo, then almost, especially for corporations, foundations, and for private foundations, staff's input has a great deal of weight. Relationship has a great deal of weight. So keep those in mind. There's some strategies that can help you break through and start to make you and your organization known to them. At the very bottom is their EIN, if it's listed, their location, if they list it, and if they have contact information, they list that. So you actually have a contact name, Jamie Allison, Executive Director, the general phone number, an email to send inquiries, and this important link to their website. Always go to their website and see how do they describe themselves? What is their focus? I'm actually on the Haas Fund website. What we fund, info for grant makers. So you're going to want to check that out. And you're going to want to balance that with, I look at the, sometimes I look at it this way. I'm going to go back up to the top. This is your starting place. This really gives you an idea whether or not you're going to find a match with this organization and the work that you do. Your further research is going to be, do I know anybody? You're going to go to their website and see what are they currently saying, and is there any additional information? Because this is a form and a template. An organization's website is where they really get to shine. So for larger foundations, particularly, they keep their website really up to date, and they're very clear with you. If you go back to their website, they're very clear what we fund. They're clear with you what their grants are and what they've talked about. Another tip I might give you is if they have on their website or sometimes in their profile, if they have a newsletter and you think, oh, I think it might be a match for XYZ, get their newsletter. It'll do a couple of things. It'll tell you what they're doing. Might be an email, it's usually an email newsletter or a blog or something. It'll tell you what they're doing. It'll tell you when grants are available. It will remind you, it'll help you understand the language of that foundation. It'll help you kind of know how they talk, what's important to them. And you might get some real good nuggets that will be helpful when you write your proposal. Because remember, part 1 is your master proposal. Part 2 is this grant research. And then part 3 is putting it together and listening to how they've described themselves and aligning yourself with that. That is different than chasing the money. And that is different than you don't chase the grant. you really do want it to be a good match. You want it to be work that hopefully you can do if for a year or years to come, or a relationship where they can come alongside you and support your work. So you don't want to be deceptive, right? You want to be clear, and you want to be realistic about what's it going to take to do this grant? And do I have the resources? A grant that requires a huge amount of reporting and complex reporting, and I am a tiny organization, that I might be spending all of my money, all my time and money trying to do my reporting. A grant that gives me more freedom and has fewer stipulations might be a great place for me to start until I can grow into working with more sophisticated grants. So it's a good point to maybe ask any questions about the profiles. And then I will go back to my presentation.
Michelle, I also just wanted to give you a time check.
Ooh, we're almost done.
Yeah, we have, there's also the poll and then the post-test that you would probably do before passing it over, but just wanted to give you a heads up.
No, I appreciate that. So our big ideas are, can you see big ideas? Is there a light bulb on everyone's screen? Thank you, King Carmen, for no. So in wrapping up, our big ideas are claim your organization's free GuideStar profile. If you haven't done it, do it. If you haven't done it this year, do it, because you need to update it each year and take some time to go through that. It's free for you. And as you saw, it keeps popping up. It pops up because when organizations give you grants, that's public information. So claim your profile. Take your time in researching, take your time to look for look for foundations and find those matches. Try different search criteria to max. And Angela's point, broaden your search criteria so that you can, so you want it too narrow. So you end up with more than just a couple of outcomes and resources. And if you're finding one that seems close, but not quite, that's a great time to reach out to staff to say, I really think this work might be a match for your funding priorities, but I'd like to have a conversation before I apply. And don't do it the day before the grant is due. So download and save searches. I will have information to share with you on how to do that, and seek relationship over money. Always seek relationship over money. Are we a match? Are we working together? Can I work with them? I have been in some wonderful relationships, like Michelle Miles Chambers is just a goddess to work with, and her team and the San Francisco Foundation, and just overly generous and helpful in terms of opportunities like Occur and working with training and doing leadership information. So seek relationship over dollars, because relationship can benefit you and go a lot further than money in many cases. And if we have any questions, the final Q&A before we do a post test.
I have one more question.
Yeah, Miss Angela, that sounds like Angela.
Yeah, I do have a question. There are some foundations that say you have to have a budget over $300,000, okay? And we have a budget of $100,000. It's easy enough for me to write a budget that says it's $300,000. It might not have been voted on by the board, but suppose I wrote a budget, say, like, this is our stretch budget, and should I do that and say, look, it's not our real budget, but it's what, if we had the money, it would make it have a $300,000 budget, and I'd easily be able to spend it. How do you do that? How do you get from, to sort of grow your organization budget when you don't really have that size budget?
Carmen, do you have an input on this? I have a thought, but my thought is, but I'd like to ask Carmen and Miles Chambers to comment on it.
I think that your budget needs to be your real budget that matches what it is you want to do. Sometimes you have to pare that back to what you have been able to get, but your budget is your budget. And that aligns with your mission, your vision, all the things we talked about last time, your methodologies. Each one of those things costs something. Now, sometimes you are not able or have not raised all of that money, but as nonprofit organizations, we keep it moving and we pare it back and we make it work. But your budget is your budget.
Yeah, I would agree. You can grow to that by looking for, smaller $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 grants that will
Yeah,
build
so you
you
have
to
to
that
build up,
level.
you have to build up to, and that's what we've
You have
been
to build
doing.
up to
That's
it.
what we've been doing. I haven't applied for any that are bigger, but I just wondered how you get to that level.
Angela, one other thing. First of all, I agree that you're a rock star. And
She is.
and then secondly, it's a lot depends on how many of the proposals you're getting out the door.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. We don't wait for one foundation to answer us before we put out a request to another foundation. And you should be able to keep that moving forward, because when you keep that moving forward, then you do meet your requirements over time. And you're able to manage your budget according to your cash flow. Sometimes we never get to the point where we can manage by cash flows. And by that, I mean, okay, we know in March, the money's coming in from Haas. We know in June, the money's coming in from the San Francisco Foundation. So you're managing your cash flow. But the only way you'll be able to get to that point is if you get enough proposals out the door.
Yes. Yeah.
And that might be another one to have a conversation. And the conversation might be, I think we're a great match. I know you have a limit. This is where we are, and we're growing into that arena. And sometimes you can start to develop a relationship. You might find that they have some discretionary funds that they might support. You might not be what you're quite looking for, but the real thing you're seeking for there is relationship, as they can work with you as you grow to that level, as they can get to know your work and be watching it. You might be sending them updates from time to time, maybe checking in from time to time, saying, we're growing to that level. Hey, we got another grant where our budget is moving closer to your level. And I think when we reach that, will be a good match for you. And you may be surprised what comes out of that.
Can I
Thank
say
you.
one more
Thank you.
thing?
That's very helpful.
One more thing to everybody, and Angela in particular, is don't forget the diversification of your funding base. So you're not just looking at foundations. You're also looking at corporations. You're also looking at possible fees for service. You're also looking at individual donors.
Yes.
You're also looking at, and so you are going to be, ideally, you're going to be seeking funds from a lot of different
Sure.
sources. You're going to have multiple streams of income, not just foundation income.
And keep in mind and this is for everyone, this isn't for you, Angela. This doesn't specifically address your question, let me say that. But something as a final point, the Foundation Directory Online works with private foundations. They also list corporate foundations. So if you have a business that does business in your town or your region, for example, Ross has a national foundation. I don't remember all the criteria for it, but they have a national Ross stores. They like to help locally. They like to help programs that help men, women, people get dressed for success. They have something like a Dress for Success program. They'll donate clothes or gift cards for those to come into their local stores. And so you can start to find that information on the Foundation Directory Online. They can direct you to local resources, local stores where those managers or those regional managers also have money. So it can take a little bit of creativity, but if you bank with an organization, that organization can be supporting you. They have a foundation. Every bank has a foundation, and regional banks, the regional managers have discretionary funds, and sometimes the bank manager has discretionary funds. If you have a store like a Target, Home Depot, Walgreens, that are large chains that are in our area, all of them provide local donations. And from small things like we need water for our event to, oh, well, we may sponsor an event, but we'll donate the water for your volunteers.
In-kind contributions.
in-kind contributions, and sometimes they'll do small cash contributions, and all of that gets you a very diverse funding stream. Besides just foundations, it should not all be foundations.
And if somebody gives you a bus, whatever it would be for you to purchase that bus, that's income, and that also is reflected as a grant. There are different kinds. I want to give Nadine Scott. Nadine had her hand up, and is it okay with you, Michelle? If
Of course.
Nadine, can you share what you were going
Sure.
to share?
Yes, thank you so much. Just take a minute of your time. Michelle just mentioned some of the places, some of our local Costco, Ross gives gift cards. You just write into the Ross Foundation, look online, TJ Maxx, the Walmart Foundation, Safeway Foundation, Albertsons Companies Foundation, things of that sort that's right in your local area. And also, you were saying, Carmen, that it's not just foundations, but lately, even the city of Oakland has been offering some grants for different Stop the Violence,
Violence prevention,
direct community services and of that sort. So you can also keep your eye on in those areas also for RFPs that come out. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's
like
good
what you were saying.
information.
Different sources, keep different areas open for you. And I would say, if you can do 5 grants a month, that's good to help keep those irons in the fire. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Excellent.
So we are coming up on 11:03. Let's take a couple more questions, Michelle.
Certainly.
Is that okay?
If you guys are gracious enough, thank you for your time. If you're gracious enough to hang with us just a few more minutes, I happily answer some questions.
It also might be good, but we can do it either way that you want, to do our kind of final wrap up so we can get everybody's answers to our post test and then do questions after that, but we can do either one.
That's up to Michelle.
If you would go ahead and put the post test up, do a little multitasking.
Sure.
And then if anyone has questions as they're answering their test, they can ask. That way we get some time to do this. And then if we have any additional questions, it was a lot of information. I will be providing, I'm looking at them now. I created some very simple resource guides, Word documents that are step by step, how to get a library card, how to find and access the FDO online. And so we will be sharing that information. Verlene has her hand up. Verlene, do you want to unmute?
Yes, thank you. And I am answering the questions. So I've always wondered, I have a, established nonprofit working with seniors, but if I want to build a relationship, say with a larger organization that's established, how would I approach them and what would be their benefit? I understand mine, but how would I approach them for that?
Well, I'll use an example.
Okay.
That's a really good question. A couple of things. One, when I didn't really go through this, but when you looked at the foundation directory online and they list grants that are received, those are profiles of other nonprofits. So there is an opportunity. Let's say you like Happy House and you think Happy House, I'm just making it up, Happy House looks like we kind of could work together and do similar work. I would look up their profile and look up their information and then just reach out to them and find out the ways that you think there may be a connection. One might be referrals. Does Happy House take referrals? And you're saying, I have a house, I have a senior house, but when we're full, can I refer them to Happy House?
Okay.
That might be an opportunity. One might be doing an event together. If you and Happy House do events or if you do fairs and housing fairs, and maybe they'll let you be at their table. I've benefited from that before. But really it starts with just proposing and asking the question. If they're a much larger organization, then take the time to get to know them and take the time to get to know their work and kind of see how you might come alongside them. Sometimes you'll be surprised how a larger and a smaller organization can partner, because you may cover a pocket that they don't have good coverage for in the community. And more, we're looking at community work being a network and a safety net, not just the Lone Ranger. We don't do the Lone Ranger anymore. We do that.
Yeah, a community strategy. I'd like to request that we complete our post-test because we were multitasking, but let's focus for a second and complete this. So the first few questions are up. If you could just go to your post-test and answer the questions.
Once we get that submitted, we'll get to Max. Max has a
Oh,
question.
yes, we have a couple hands up. We haven't forgotten you, Max.
I haven't forgotten you, Max.
And Shai, you can go ahead and conduct the post-test as you did before. I forget.
Oh,
Did you do it,
post-test has
Michelle?
been up for
Okay.
3.5 minutes. So people are filling it out. We've had about 60 people fill it out, but there's still a number of people that haven't yet.
Okay, great.
If anyone's not seeing the post-test on their screen, maybe let me know in the chat, because some people's configurations, it doesn't always work, but it should be.
And then Michelle, if you would like to review the post-tests so that you can reiterate maybe some of the points that you made during your presentation. Let's go to that right now.
The post-test results.
Yes.
We can
even just
keep it
the-
up if we can keep it up and have people keep going, and you can go through it if you want. You can see people's live, how many people did true and how many people did false.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
would
if you
be,
want.
I think it would be helpful, Michelle, if you could just give the correct answer.
1, you need to identify potential funders before you conduct your research. True or false? I would say that is false. It's helpful, but you will find that information out as you go through your research. You will identify potential funders, and sometimes those that you think are a match may not be, or you think should give you money, may not. So go through the research first. And if you have funders in mind, then use the research to verify them. 2, all grants are awarded based on the greatest need. That is false. I think Michelle Miles Chambers articulated that so clearly, that there are a number of factors, starting with the foundation's goals and objectives, subjects and priorities, funding priorities. 3, there are very few funders who will support faith-based organizations. Well, it depends. I mean, I think you heard from Angela, but the true answer is false. There are funders who will support faith-based organizations. You need to differentiate when you're doing proselytizing work versus when you're doing community work. You may have to differentiate those things. And you may need to visit and develop relationship with the faith-based organizations so they really understand the nature of your work. But it is surprising to me how many organizations, often based on the funders' personal faith, actually do support faith-based. And I'll give you an example. When we looked at Haas, one of their areas, subject areas, is the Jewish community, right? And then they have a whole bunch of other subject areas, but the Jewish community is the one area of faith that they support. 4, it is important to know what populations the funder wants to support. True, all day long. What they want to support, who they want to support, and how they want to support. Funders may fund you more than once. That is true. It is based on their guidelines. And often they will list in their guidelines, if you have received a fund from us in XYZ period of time, then you may not apply again, or you may apply again after a certain period of time. So you need to read that very carefully. Online research will help you identify both foundation and corporate funders. That is true. Most funders only fund at certain times of the year. That is true, but some are a little loose on that. Some are just as they come in. We have board meetings quarterly, and whatever comes in within 2 months before the board meeting gets presented clarified and presented. So you need to know what their certain times of the year are. You get that through research. You won't get funding if you're a new organization. That is not true. New organizations can and do get funding, but there are certain foundations that will fund them and certain organizations that will fund new organizations. And often the funding is fairly small, but they give you a lot of flexibility. You always have to be invited before submitting a proposal. That is false. There are times when it is only by invitation. We talked about some of the strategies for getting an invitation, but they will clarify. They'll clearly say, instead of funding guidelines, they'll clearly say, we do not accept unsolicited proposals. They'll just state that. And then you need to respect that. You should prepare a master proposal as a reference for your information. That is true. That is true. That is absolutely true. With the caveat that you then take that information and you read the guidelines closely and carefully, and you modify what you have to fit the guidelines. You don't change what you're doing to fit the guidelines, but you make sure that you line them up and you make those points of comparison. So,
Okay.
Max, did you want to ask your question? Max still has his hand up.
Can I step in for just a second? Because I know that some people are popping off the line. And so we need to do two things, but if it's okay with you, Michelle, we'll hang in to answer.
Absolutely. I'll hang as long as anyone needs.
Everybody's question. But the first thing, so that people feel that they can go ahead to whatever is next for them, another meeting or whatever, we want to complete our evaluation, number one, and it's only a few questions. Shy, how many questions is that? It's like
it is 5 questions.
And then we have an announcement, a very, very, very important announcement. And then we'll go into the Q&A a little further. So let's do that quickly, Shy, with the evaluation.
Sure. There you go.
We have 5 quick. You mind if I read the questions?
Oh, please do.
1, I learned how to identify appropriate funders who will support my organization. True or false? I learned how to self-screen funding requests to minimize rejections. True or false? 3, I am confident in navigating the funding research portals. True or false? And 4, I understand the importance of identifying the right funder for my request. True or false? And 5, and the last question, I learned how to craft my research strategy, my funding research strategy. True or false? If you'd be so kind as to answer those, we would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate it.
And I would like to just very quickly give everyone a heads up on 2 things. First, the next training is going to be on April 27th. It's going to be presented by another of my good friends, Lori Shepard, and she's going to be talking about nonprofit marketing and communications. Can you put that back up, please, Shy? I want to read the exact title.
Yeah, sorry, my screen did something strange.
So anyway, Lori's going to be talking about your profile, because one of the things that is extremely important is that it's not only you who does research on funders, funders do research on you. And the question is, what will they see when they track who you are? What do they see when they are looking at your Guide Star? What do they see when they're looking at your website? Are you able to say who you are? And will funders who perhaps are looking very seriously to fund you, when they look for you, are you having the kind of profile that is going to really get them excited about giving you those funds? And so that's going to be on April 27th. One thing that's going to be really great about this is that Lori is going to select a case study from among some of you. And so if you're interested in having your organization to be the case study, where we look at a before and after, where Lori actually helps to build a strong profile, then send an email to occur. Shai, what would be a good email for that?
I'll put it in the chat, info@occurnow.org.
Okay. And just let us know that you would be interested in having your organization reviewed and perhaps to have Lori to help strengthen your profile as a case study so that we can use it as a very specific example. And the other thing is, if you have attended part 1 and part 2, part 1, which is introduction to proposal writing, and then part 2 was today when you're doing funding research, we would like to invite you to apply to receive one-on-one consulting where someone would actually help you to go through the proposal writing process or the funding research process with a consultant. So if you're interested in that, also send an email to Occur, info@occur.org. And just say, you know, whatever your name is, the name of your organization. Of course, we'll be able to get in touch with you from that, and we'll take it from there. And we'll have that discussion about you having one-on-one support for what you want to do next. And that's it. Michelle, I'm handing it back over to you for Q&A.
I was on mute. Yes, I don't know if Max.
There's also
still-
a question from Max still, but
Max.
holding on for
Go
a long
ahead,
time.
Max. You've been waiting a long time.
Thanks for
Yeah,
being-
no worries. And I appreciate you all going overtime yourselves, right? So very appreciated. Yeah, and mine, and today helped me kind of crystallize this point, because this is I'm gonna say it's a tough question. I have autism, so I can be pretty blunt. I want to be delicate about it, and there's like this great, and it's like a negativity question, but I also want to be cool about it. And there's like this great Bernice King quote about like being truthful about reality, but still hope believes in better. So love Bernice King, love this. My question, and this helped me phrase it better, is I've been looking for resources and times and stories about when it's not about resources on systemic failure. And I almost would like call a presentation, if Occur wants to do this, on like when it just isn't you. Right, that there's all these great resources about how to kind of play the game a little better, write better presentations, build funding. And I think, and there's absolutely times where that helps up to a point. And then there's times, and this is just one illustrative example, like one issue I've seen in the nonprofit industry, for example, because I do a lot of work with like really bare bones advocacy, grassroots efforts. And as one example, fiscal sponsorship or creating a 501c3 can be a barrier, right? Like group just doesn't have the capacity. And fiscal sponsors in this state, I think there just aren't enough fiscal sponsors for the need. And it's not that any one organization sometimes is better than another. Sometimes just like all 4 of you wrote great proposals, you're all worthy, and there's just only one slot. And then it's just kind of like, that's just, and I feel like I'd like to see more resources out there about when that's the harsh reality, while also trying to do our part to get creative, find workarounds, etc. I just like, sometimes I don't see enough harsh reality resources. If that makes sense.
Michelle, can
Yes.
I take this one?
Please.
Thank you, Max. So I want to say, I feel like we have been dealing with the harsh realities. The harsh reality is there's never going to be enough money in the philanthropic sector to completely support the nonprofit sector. It was not designed to do that. We have to be able to build the capacity of our nonprofit partners up so that they will be able to receive government funding. The philanthropic sector for the whole piece of the pie is only 10% of the pie. The biggest portion of the pie is really from individual donors or individuals that really believe in the mission of the organization. Now, in regards to the option of if you don't have the capacity or the resources, or your organization does not want to become a 501c3, there are many, many resources, particularly here in the Bay Area, where there is fiscal sponsorship, a plethora of many, many choices around fiscal sponsorship to move through that process. We are definitely not encouraging every advisory project or every project group to become a 501c3 if the capacity is not there. So if you would like to know what some of those resources are that actually have fiscal sponsorship, I'd be more than happy. I believe I've shared my information with you. I'd be more than happy to have a sit down with you. I just want to stress that the philanthropic sector was not designed to fully support all of the work that is really great happening in the nonprofit sector, which also includes faith-based organizations and congregations. It's just to support them, but the funding has to be diversified. That's why we are providing this partnership, a model built on faith with Occur, to be able to diversify the options and give folks the tools to put in their toolkit, on their tool belt, or in their toolbox to continue to expand.
LaDonna Williams, you have a question?
Thank you,
Yes, good morning.
Michelle. Is-
Good, oh, wait, is it morning or afternoon? My times are just so shot, still in the
It's
morning.
still morning.
I think it's
Yeah.
still morning.
Well, first I wanted
It's
to
a busy
say,
morning, but it's still morning.
oh my gosh. I first wanted to say thank you for these workshops. I've attended previous workshops and I used to think, oh, Kerr, it's faith-based. That's not really our angle. Or, you know, we've gotten some decent grants. So at first I thought, what can we learn that we don't already know? A whole lot. So I will definitely be recommending this to even advanced grant writers. You can still brush up, but just learning so much today. And I have several years, I won't say how many behind it, but today really had been an eye opener and a refresher. So thank you guys for that. But I was just wondering, also, do you help with organizations realizing in their growth pains and paths, if one should switch from a 501c3 to, I think, is it the foundation, sort of like family foundation? Is that 501c4? If you go from the 501c3 nonprofit to the foundation nonprofit, if I'm saying it right.
As if your organization wants to become a foundation, is that what you're asking?
Yes, if they should possibly switch, because you tend to end up, and that's a question we've been asked a lot too, because we do work with other nonprofits where they're finding they end up doing more family type projects that, how should I say it? Not family projects, but the folks that they are employing are more family related as opposed to, you know, just the public sector.
No, I don't have an expertise in that area because although our name has foundation in it, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. The one thing I would recommend is that you look at the IRS guidelines and you speak to your accountant about whether or not that would be a move that would be advantageous for you and why you would make that. And the first piece is you have to be in business for 10 years as a nonprofit before you could become a private foundation.
Right.
So that's one thing to look at, and then there would be others, and then look at and get a consultant to help you understand what you want to accomplish, right? Because as a nonprofit, you can make grants. As a nonprofit, you can bring in people, you can partner with people. So really, what are you trying to accomplish in that? Do you want to take a step back, or do you want to continue to do direct service work?
Okay, that's actually the advice I gave, but I got asked that question twice within like a 3-month period, and I didn't have a better answer either. Well, your answer is great, but mine was
Right,
just,
what was,
you know,
yeah, it depends.
go to the consultant and see what they ask. And then, you know, the other complaint is finding qualified accountants to help people keep up on their, you know, requirements and reporting and things like that too. But those are some of the things we're hearing and dealing with as well.
I
But
just wanted
thank
to
you.
add, LaDonna, those are great questions. So I think what Michelle suggested is really great. There are hundreds of categories within the 501c3 option. And like our foundation, we are 501c3 too, but we are public charity. So whoever you talk to, just be very specific on really what you want to do. You can have a 501c3 and you can also have a 501c4 as well. They did put it in the chat that that's more for if you want to do direct lobbying work. You can do advocacy work as a 501c3. You don't have to have a 50C4, 501c4. However, you have a certain allotment that you can do up to a certain dollar amount if you are doing lobbying work as a 501c3. So just make sure that you're really clear about what you want. You can also change your status as a 501c3 to do more work as more of a public charity like a foundation. So definitely consult with someone who legally knows how to do that. And there are a couple of bookkeeping folks that I know that have been supportive of nonprofits. So if you want to contact me, I can give you a short list of folks that I know that work specifically with nonprofits around bookkeeping.
Okay, and on my screen, I only see Michelle Edmonds lit up. I can't see who was just speaking to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will.
I'm sorry. It's Michelle Miles Chambers. I'll put my info in the chat.
Oh, okay. Michelle.
There you
Oh,
go.
okay. You're with the San Francisco Foundation?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Are you able to see everybody now? To whoever asked that question, sorry, I don't know who asked that.
Michelle Miles Chambers is one of the founders of A Model Built on Faith. And she's the funder of A Model Built on Faith. So we're really grateful to Michelle for all of the work that she's done with this organization and with Occur. And yes, yet another rock star.
Rock star. I think LaDonna are you trying to answer another question? Ask another question?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying thank you. And I was looking up the thing there. It was just that she's not showing on my screen. Usually it'll light up in green and I just
Mickey iPhone is Michelle Miles Chambers. It says Mickey iPhone.
Okay. Okay. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We want to thank Michelle. This is her third day without power. And so she is being a real trooper, Michelle Miles Chambers. She's being a real trooper. She has been hit with that bomb cyclone and lost power. And she's just been hanging in there. Thank you.
Michelle, you came in on your phone, correct? I think Michelle
Correct.
on her phone.
Yeah,
Yeah. She hasn't had any. I was kind of worried that she wouldn't be able to make it, but speaking of troopers, somehow she found a way, and there she is. Are there any other questions? Nadine Scott, Dr. Nadine Scott.
Well, it's not a question. I was just listening to LaDonna. And LaDonna, I did put a phone number in the chat for Sally Hawkins. You were talking about an accountant. And with our organization, we have a bookkeeper and accountant. So the bookkeeper is keeping up with our financials month to month. And we use Sally Hawkins, whose number is 510-812-5047. We use her. She completes our 990s for us every year. We've been with her for about 30 years. And we trust her. And so I don't mind. I refer a lot of nonprofit organizations to Sally Hawkins to help them keep their books in line. And also Audrey Blanson is the bookkeeper. So if anyone needs would like the number to Audrey Blanson, I can give you that also. And I put my number in the chat just in case you have any questions that I can help you with, any information, 510-931-0967. And I've been for over about 25 years now, I've been doing nonprofits for many organizations all over the Bay Area and other states. So if anyone's having a problem or want to be a nonprofit, and if I can be of service to you, just let me know, because that's what we do. We're willing to help people. And thank you. If you have any more questions, just let me know.
I can attest to that. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, we are going to be ending this session. It's 11:33. Thank you, everyone, for